All right. Hello, everyone. How's it going?
Good.
Hello.
Things are well.
Good. Well, hello, Savannah, Georgia. Hello, Georgia. Hello, USA. Hello, world. We are back again Saturday at noon. It's time for the Watchdogs, and this week we have a very important topic. I think we got to this topic because CRT is in the news, race, gender, all of these topics are in the news, and so why not talk about one of the most historic pieces to American fabric, and that is historically Black colleges and universities. And so today we're going to talk about the role of HBCUs in today's society. And Julius, today we're supposed to have three. I think we'll have our third person join us soon. But two great individuals. We have Ryan Tumblin, who's a graduate of the Savannah State University, and Dr. Carl Walton, who is a graduate of Morris Brown College. And so we'll ask you all to kind of expand on your intro, and we'll go from there.
You're going with first. Mr. Tomlin?
We can go in alphabetical order.
Okay.
Hey, but
That would be me. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I'm a fourth generation graduate of Savannah State University, and the tradition itself is what I think lured me to the campus. I'm pretty sure I could have gone anywhere I so desired to, but to me it gave me an opportunity to get something that I didn't feel like I felt like I needed, and I had not gotten in terms of education, K through 12. And then too, of course, when you have family members who work on the campus and your parents take you back on the campus, for homecomings and for visits, and they talk about their experiences, although it was during a different era, a different time frame, it still was the same. And a lot of those things I experienced, when I got to Savannah State. I came on the campus in 1997, and of course, when I left in 2001, I always tell this to my students that I arrived as a young boy, and I left as a man. And the whole mantra and the motto of "you can get anywhere from here" definitely holds true. And you leave there with a sense of not just belonging, but a sense of pride that you can compete in any facet of life, no matter where you are. It doesn't matter where you go. I mean, I left and went to Albany, Georgia for about 6 years, and I felt that my Savannah State, education prepared me for going in a place that I wasn't familiar with. But at the same time, I felt confident that my professors and my classmates and my peers prepared me for this moment. So going into year 20 in education, and I can honestly say that I'm a proud alum, and honestly, my experience there, has enabled me to be at this point in life where I am right now, and I wouldn't take anything away from it at all.
Good morning to everyone. As Dr. Bryan indicated, I'm a graduate of Morris Brown College in Atlanta, Georgia. I grew up with regard to my decision to attend Morris Brown. I grew up knowing about Morris Brown. I had family members who had attended the college, had a cousin who was a professor there, who was also an alum. I grew up in the AME church, which is connected to Morris Brown. So I grew up knowing about Morris Brown, knowing it was a place that was always at the top of my list. I considered other places, visited other places, was admitted to other places. But at the end of the day, I came to the conclusion that I wanted to go to Morris Brown. I grew up knowing about the band, wanted to be a part of the band, which I became a part of the Marching Wolverine band. Knew that I could also get a strong academic base there because of the mentorship and the influences of people who were on that campus when I was a student. I got involved as a student, and it really set the stage for my desire to ultimately get a PhD and to spend my career as a professor. and most of which has been at HBCUs, except for, I guess, the first 4 years I've been at HBCUs. So it set the tone. It established, to me, the importance of those institutions and what HBCUs do, can do, and what we must continue to be unapologetic about doing.
And to kind of set us up for today's conversation, I'll talk about Savannah State, and then because it's right here in Savannah, but also talk about the economic impact of HBCUs. You know, in Savannah, I don't think a lot of people understand the history and the importance of Savannah State. But at one time, it was the only institution Black folks could go to become teachers. And that's where a lot of our educators and teachers are from, you know, today in Savannah. They graduated from Savannah State. And so that's an important fact to know, because had it not been for Savannah State, we may have not had African-American teachers in this region, much less the city of Savannah. But when we talk about the economic impact of HBCUs, a report from, I want to say this is UNCF, the United Negro College Fund. Did you all know that HBCUs generate $14.8 billion in total economic impact where they're located across the nation? And so, you know, a lot of people have the pros and cons and all of this conversation about HBCUs, but they are important fabric still today in American society. But if you all could elaborate on how has the role of HBCUs changed over time, especially since when they were founded many years ago?
I think when you talk about evolution of HBCUs and how it has changed, I think the one thing we don't really talk about, and it's the area that I've spent a good portion of my career, is simply in athletics. And I don't want to downplay any other aspect of education, and I don't want to make it seem as if, you know, athletics is, but it's the driving force behind a lot of it. And unfortunately, the stories aren't necessarily told about the value and the importance of HBCUs, and it hasn't been told down through the years. When you start to look at the history of historically Black colleges, and when you start to look at the changes and the transitions that we have, we can take the 1960s and 70s, and we can look at the transition, and we can even get into the 1980s. When you start to see that students were able to gain admission into other institutions, that exposure on television, the accessibility in terms of resources, so they thought, were the drawing cards to students and to kids, you know, who wanted to have an opportunity to not only, you know, perform, as I heard Dr. Walton talk about being a part of the Wolverine band. You know, if a young man or young woman wants to compete at a certain level athletically, it's just become it's just a sign of the time. It's just being in a situation, in a position that people can see you, to be visible, to have accessibility has been one of those things that has really gotten or gets into the minds of young people. And if you don't have someone really talking about their stories, you know, sharing their experiences, and the value and the importance of what an HBCU has to offer you, when you really want to look at it, and we can dispel those myths very easily. If you look at, let's just take football, for example. I can give you 3 names who are all Hall of Famers who outperformed people who are at Power 5 schools. Michael Strahan at Texas Southern is a Hall of Famer. He outperformed his competition across the board. Otherwise, he wouldn't have that gold jacket. Jerry Rice, Mississippi Valley. And then, of course, Shannon Sharp from Savannah State University, all of which could have gone to other schools. But because they are part of those institutions, we have to continue to tell those stories that if you can play, they'll find you. And I don't want to say that, you know, that's the only thing, but that's been a major thing, I think, is the visibility in athletics, and, of course, the resources. And then, of course, we have to start dispelling myths in our community. We have to really be able to give people the other side of the story, they get one-sided views, and it starts with education. You talked, Mr. Bryant, you talked about the importance of educators at Savannah State University. My mother's a teacher, was a retired educator. My godmother, who's 94, 95 years old, was a retired educator, Savannah State University. People in my community, and I grew up in a small town, USA, Claxton, Georgia. All the teachers who I knew, African Americans, had Savannah State roots. So they told the story about their education and how they developed relationships with their professors and with people whom they went to school with. We have to start back telling these stories, and we have to expose them by taking them and putting them on these campuses, not just doing homecoming, but in other times where they can really see the value and importance of them.
Absolutely, and I 100% agree with that with Mr. Tomlin, and that last point really struck a chord. I grew up in Barnesville, Georgia, another small town up in Middle Georgia, and most of my teachers came from Fort Valley State, because Fort Valley State was the closest college, and most of the people in that area went to Fort Valley State. And I can go through every grade, and I don't think I can go to any grade that I was taught, and there wasn't a Fort Valley State University person that was there. From family members to community leaders and everything. The footprint of Fort Valley State is major in that part of Georgia, as is the Savannah State footprint in coastal Georgia or in that part of Georgia, as quite frankly, as well as Savannah State. My middle school principal, Savannah State. His wife taught typing. Was the business education person in high school. So, I can do Albany State, Savannah, Fort Valley, and then the AU Center schools. I mean, that's where our leadership came from, that raised many of us. And so, it just continues to be important, the impact, the economic impact, but just the political, social, moral compass of those communities was established out of what people got at these institutions. Historically, I think it's changed because at some point after integration and or desegregation, people had this broader opportunity, and sometimes people, they wanted their young people to have the opportunity to get another opportunity, or their young people were raised differently and wanted another kind of opportunity to go to school. But these schools were founded out. They were the place that we could go. I had the opportunity to spend 10 years as a professor and then an administrator at Lincoln University in Pennsylvania, which is the first degree granting institution. And it's about 45 minutes from Cheyney University of Pennsylvania, which is the first Black institution, founded in 1837, Lincoln in 1854. And those institutions continue there in the North. They're the northernmost HBCUs. And of course, you have Dell State in that area, and then the schools in Maryland. Delaware State, in Delaware, and then you have the Maryland schools there that are a little further south. But it's still important, and I think that in spite of the opportunities that exist for folk to attend historically white institutions, I think that the significance of the historically Black institution certainly remains for me, and we have to continue to tell those stories, as Mr. Tomlin said. People need to know about, Strahan and Sharp, and Rice and Walter Payton and many, many others. When you start looking at the SWAC conference, numerous, from Southern, from Jackson State, from all of these different places and just around the country, you have these athletes that have come out. And I think that the one thing that HBCUs probably have to continue to push forward on is telling our story, and making sure that that generations coming know our stories and know our successes. I think that sometimes we get in this place where you should know anyway. Well, how do you know if we don't promote it? And the reason why you have people who are fans of UGA who've never been on that campus in their lives, fans of Alabama who've never been on Alabama's campus in their lives, but they are ride or die fans for those schools because of the marketing and the promotion, and because you see it. And if you begin to do that for our HBCUs, people will have that same mentality, I believe, towards us.
Well, they also don't give the funds out fairly either. It's not
Correct.
on an equitable scale. They might give the University of Georgia uh, $20 million and they use that in advertising. They promote
Correct.
the school. Savannah State might get 1 million,
Correct.
or less.
Yeah.
We had a state senator here who always was so happy about all the money that he got for Savannah State, but it was peanuts compared to what the University of Georgia was getting. And they're suing these schools all over the country. We're suing the states all over the country now because they were underfunded.
Yeah.
No.
Mm-hmm. That is so true.
If we could pause for a minute, we our Rattler, FAMU Rattler just joined us. Miss Gregory, how are you?
I'm wonderful. Hi guys, how are you? I'm in the middle of a client, so I'm unable to
Look,
turn the camera on.
I told him, I said, she's a forestry major and she's a makeup artist. You can't get any better than that.
Hello, gentlemen. This is an excellent conversation that you're having. I'm loving the discussion so far. Is there anything in particular that you want me to contribute, Mr. Bryant?
If you just kind of give us a brief 1-minute intro of who you are, and of course, I'm sure you're going to mention the Florida A&M University.
Of course I am.
And so, tell us who you are.
Okay, wonderful. Well, greetings, everyone. My name is Sateria Gregory. I am a proud graduate of the Florida Agricultural and Mechanical University. I'm a spring 2004 graduate with my Bachelor of Science in Ornamental Horticulture. I received my Master of Science. I was the first Black woman to receive the degree in forestry with a focus in forest biotechnology from the University of Georgia. I'm a Jacksonville, Florida native, and I am an environmental scientist by trade. I have history in federal and state and university environments with working. And I currently am an entrepreneur. I own and operate City Art Beauty Studio based in Tallahassee, Florida. And it's the middle of bridal season. So I'm actually in with the bride right now. Well, in working right now, but I'm able to jump on really quick and just say hello. So hi guys.
Why didn't I have her on the campaign last year anyway? Anyway, back on topic. So there has been a comparison of HBCUs and PWIs. We all know the conversations, right? So what do you all say in response to those comparisons? And what do you all have to say about those comparisons? We all know the general ones.
I think it's like comparing apples to oranges. I mean, it goes back to what Mr. Hall mentioned earlier. And until we get to a point where we're able to level the playing field, and that's going to require a couple of things. One, as Mr. Walton and I agreed, telling those stories, obviously, but the resources have to be in place for our institutions to really thrive, and we have to have a seat at the table. I think it's got to get to a point where we're more involved with our legislators, where we're advocating, we're lobbying and we're advocating for access to have those resources and to be able to market our institutions. When you look at it, if they have access because they have the monies to spend to market, then they're more visible. When people are riding around and they see paraphernalia or you turn the television on and you see something promoting these institutions, and you see people of all races and backgrounds and various ethnicities actively engaged in promoting those institutions. That's where the visibility is, and that's where people see it. It's branding. If I look in terms of branding, there are three major brands. I'm a coach. There are three major brands out there when you talk about apparel. It's Nike, Adidas, and Under Armour. Bottom line, no matter where you are, what you do, where you go, what you see, you're going to see those three brands advertised through the uniform, through apparel. When you turn the television on, you watch, games, or when you look at something, you go somewhere. It doesn't matter whether you look at television or not. You look at on your social media. Those advertisements are going to pop up constantly. Well, the same way that's happening, we have to be able to brand our institutions, but we have to have the resources to be able to do it. And that starts, one, with giving. Our alums are going to have to get to the point where we give. I don't care how much you give, we got to give something. And we got to give on a regular basis. It doesn't matter how much people are giving. If you have 30,000 alums from an institution, then those 30,000 alums need to be in a position where they're giving small amounts. And you can give specifically to those entities that are near and dear to you, whether it's to an organization or to a department, auxiliary, to athletics. It doesn't matter where it is. The monies have to go back there. The second thing is we have to demand a seat at the table. We're at a point now, asking for a seat at the table ain't going to work. So we have to be people like yourselves running for public office who are going to ensure that our institutions are not forgotten about. That's why you talk about comparing the two. That's why there's no really comparison, because they're going to ensure those people who are part of that legislature are going to make sure that the monies are appropriated for their institutions. They're graduates of them, and even if they're not graduates of them, their kids are going to these institutions.
Well,
when we got to send our kids back there.
That's how
that was my thought.
Most of the legislature are UGA grads.
No question.
Yeah.
If
no
I
question.
may,
then we got to send our kids back to these schools too. That's my last point. I'm sorry.
If I may just kind of piggyback, this is Sateria again, exactly what Mr. Bryant just said, that most of the legislators are UGA graduates, being in Tallahassee, most of the legislature in Florida are FSU and University of Florida graduates. And it's not just alums giving back, because I will say FAMU has a strong alumni base that gives back regularly, and we sow back into the school. But what's also hurting is policy. And this is policy by elected officials that are setting up systems that are meant to disenfranchise HBCUs. HBCUs. And the biggest issue that I have seen, really, these PWIs came into prominence from three big reasons. A lot of these schools, that were built, especially like UGA, these other big schools in the South, they are built on old plantation land. So those people who had those properties gifted those lands to the state to be turned into institutions. So we talking about, first of all, they already have a financial advantage because they were given these lands, given the allocation to set them up. With HBCUs, even though we were quote unquote land grant institutions, we didn't own any of it. It was allocated to us for the sole purpose of using it, but not. There was very rare situations where we were in ownership of the land that we were creating our institutions on. The second thing that I see is that a lot of them came into prominence when they recruited and went after Black athletes. So
you went there.
Big money for these big institutions and these policies, their numbers go up.
You went there.
Talent off of Black athletes. And so what's happening right now is the Black athletes are being tired of how they're being treated. And one of the things I can say that shook up the college athletic world is when last year, one of the top recruits in the country did a visit at FAMU's campus. He wound up going to Oregon. But he came to FAMU and did a visit, took a picture in the uniform and everything, and the internet went crazy. And what you saw from the fans of the PWIs is it was almost as if, like, how dare he consider going to that school? Like, the racism came out, and it's like they have no problem looking at a 6'8", 17-year-old kid who, if he wasn't running, jumping, and catching the football, would be a target for police violence. But they had no problem if he was considering going to their institution. And so that is something that, we had to talk about. While we were at UGA, Brother Bryant, he already knows, excuse my language, I raised a lot of hell when I was on that campus because of the
got me in trouble.
And especially when it came to the athletes. They were heroes on Saturday and in work Saturday. And so but they use the profit that's generated off of this Black talent to fund their institutions. And that's why they privatized a lot of their athletic departments, so that the athletic departments can get all kind of, they run it like a private business. And that's how they generated their funds. With HBCUs, and that's how it hurt HBCUs when these PWIs whose athletic programs became privately funded, because the politicians that are graduates and their frat brothers and their and and have equal financial stakeholdings, right? The children or the descendants of the people who own the slave lands that were given to them, they come from all this prominence, and so they pitch this lifestyle to kids who are from the hood. And they say, you can have this too if you just come and play for our school. And I saw it firsthand being a grad student at UGA, tutoring some of those football players and the things that were dangled in front of them to go to these schools. But the one thing I did see, and I wish we had a clip of it, was when Shannon Sharp was talking about HBCUs. And he said that while he was playing for Savannah State, the coach from Miami tried to woo him away. And he went to his coach and he was like, man, they telling me I can play in front of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people every week. I can have this, I can have that. But his coach said, well, if you're talented, the NFL gonna come and find you no matter where you are. And Shannon Sharp said he walked out of that room and didn't ask anything else about it. Now Shannon does, at events, he goes and speaks on behalf of HBCUs, but I need these athletes, NFL players who are Hall of Fame players, who have made prominent names for themselves, to go and be more active in the forefront of their HBCUs. Because when they're talking about, recruiting and stuff like that, or the draft, you never see them advocate and say, hey, y'all finna go pick up some HBCU players? I would love to see more of that. It's nice that what Deion Sanders is doing coming back after the fact, but I want to be very, 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 very clear. FSU was not trying to hire him. So it's like, okay, well, let me go see what this other school is doing. So
he liked the sonic boom. That's why he went over there.
No, that ain't right.
No.
But my whole point is that it took
he liked the J set.
And this is my last point, so I can be quiet. But it took LeBron James signing a Nike contract deal with FAMU for everybody to be like, oh my God. And that's never happened. But they always notifying HBCU bands when it's time for performance or entertainment or anything like that. But they see no other value in us unless we basically go and create that value for ourselves. I think another brother mentioned that we got to stop begging for seats at the table. You're absolutely right. And what's happening now is we're building our own table. We're building our own table and we're creating value. And these Black athletes, the top talent, they are actually looking at HBCUs now because of what's transpired in the last 3 to 5 years. So there is a shift happening, but we have to be very careful how we execute these next couple of years, or we could lose, a lot of progress. But I just wanted to just chime in and just share that little tidbit.
Just a little bit.
Let me
funny. Go ahead.
Well, it was just a point I wanted to make. We are not on the same platform as those Division I schools. Most HBCUs are in our communities. They're located in our communities, most of them. But we also have to have some type of community pride also. And here in Savannah, with Savannah State College, and we thought that the college was underfunded. It still is. They were losing teachers, and we didn't know how they were going to survive, because we thought that SCAD was going to come and buy them out and take over that property and that campus, and the school was going to go under. But what we have to do is have some type of community pride also. We can talk about how we want to change it, how we want to get them to fund it, but we have to, in the meantime, while we're doing that, because if we don't go vote, we can't change nothing anyway. All we can do is cry and complain and hope that it changes if we don't put the right people in there who are going to be fair to all the schools. But we have to be able to have the community pitch in also. Because it's about the community, especially here in Savannah. If everybody here in Savannah were to give, along with the alumni of every that has went to Savannah State over all the years, gave, the school would not be underfunded. Harvard, look how much money Harvard got. Look how much money all these big Division I schools, because people give and pour back into those schools. We don't do that. We celebrate one time a year. That's homecoming. Everybody's there to a homecoming. So we have to be able to say that we're not going to wait on nobody. We're going to fund ourselves while we develop this plan. And like the sister said, it is changing. But we have to be able to keep these schools afloat now until it changes, until it's equitable for all the schools.
And Julius, you're exactly right. You talk about community involvement. If the community were really tied into these institutions, I'm going to give you an example of what can go bad. People don't realize that same teacher program I talked about earlier was taken from Savannah State and given to another institution right across the street. Taken from. Think about how powerful that is. Luckily, I believe Cheryl brought it back. The teacher program. That's a powerful cash cow. I mean, it's a powerful program in itself, but that is a major revenue generator. And so, had the community at the time raised hell about it, maybe that wouldn't have happened. But you got things like that where Armstrong was about to be consolidated with Savannah State. That's crazy. It is the most historical institution in this state, and you're going to consolidate it. It just didn't make sense. So you're right about that. We got to get more community involvement beyond just homecoming.
Yeah.
I also want to add really quickly, just to piggyback what you were saying about Brother Hall. I just have to interject really quickly. The situation with Harvard, they're the wealthiest institution out of all. You can add up several institutions, and they will not topple Harvard. But what got Harvard that $1 billion trust is that they have corporate funding. That comes from, again, white privilege, white male privilege in particular, inherited white male privilege. So this is almost like the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the Fords all got together, had families, rubbed elbows, intermarry, and they keep the money within themselves. So we have to give ourselves credit in the fact that we are doing something, but understand they had a 400-year head start on getting that money set up for Harvard. So I just want to throw that out there.
Oh yeah.
Sorry to cut you off, Brother Tom, but I'm gonna go back to my service now.
It's fine. No, what I was saying is essentially the same as all of you. We're talking about giving and taking back. It starts with cultivating a relationship the day that child is accepted to the institution. If we're going to change the way we, the ability to give, is we have to teach giving when that child gets on that campus. We can't do it their sophomore years. We can't do it their junior or their senior years because they're getting ready to transition into something totally different. The moment that child is on that campus, they need to be connected with alums who can actively engage them throughout the year, not just at homecoming, but when they go home for Christmas break. Invite them. Sometimes alumni associations have holiday socials. Invite those kids back. They're going home for spring break. Reach out to them once a month. When I was Southern Region VP at Savannah State University, one of the things I proposed was an alumni recruitment network. And it was essentially something that we were doing on a small scale here in Claxton. When students would enroll at the institution, we would make sure that bi-monthly, we would interact with them, contact them, call them, check on them, see how they were doing. If they needed something, if they needed an opportunity, if they were trying to intern, be that, give them that opportunity, let them know that we really cared about them. But then we also talked about the importance of them when they graduated, joining an alumni association wherever they moved to. But we have to really talk about not only joining those associations, but giving has to be one of the things that because we don't talk about giving enough. We want to see them graduate. We want to see them do well. We want to see them talk about good things about those institutions. We have to teach them that it's important that somebody is sacrificing something for you to have this opportunity. Here's why you need to give back. Here's the importance of giving. And we have to do it on a regular basis, but it must begin when they become freshmen. As soon as they're enrolled, during orientation, that has to be one of the major pieces that we push to them. about involvement. The same when we talked to them about the importance of going to class and taking care of their business, their freshman and sophomore years, getting involved on campus, networking. The importance of giving has to be something that so that whenever they graduate, there's no doubt left. They understand the importance. I got to give back to my institution who gave me an opportunity. I may have earned this degree, but I didn't do it by myself. Somebody has sacrificed something along the way to give me this opportunity for me to be in this position that I'm in. I can't just come back and spend $1,000 in October on one weekend. I can't come back and spend $1,000 or throw an extravagant parties. I have friends who rent homes for that weekend. And when I was a regional VP in my late 20s, early 30s, I had some knockdown dragouts with friends, alums, fellow alums, because they didn't see the importance. State should be doing this. No, you are Savannah State. Right. When you walked across that stage and you got that degree in your hand, you are Savannah State University. Regardless of where it is, you take that institution on, it's on your back every single day you walk out of your house. You are branded for life because that is an institution that gave you your start. Until we start doing that changes. That's not everything, but that's one major piece that changes the whole the whole platform or playing field as far as us being able to give and support ourselves.
You're exactly right on that point, because one of the things that somebody told me, or a couple of students told me from Savannah State, was that they didn't feel like they were included. The bougie old alumni association didn't make these people feel like, the younger people graduating feel like they were a part of this alumni association. So it has to be several different types of arms or components to it, like you said, so that everybody can work together on the collaborative effort to enrich the school, because that's the only way it's going to work. Because if the bougie ones who have been in there 30, 40 years and don't want to get out the way and just be a part of the growing process, they want to always lead, and they don't have any real vision for getting you to the next level, then those students that's just graduating aren't going to want to participate. They're not going to want to be with these bougie people who all they want to do is throw a party once a year and dress up. That's like the NAACP. They throw a party once a year. All they do is party. That's all they know how to do is party. They don't advocate for the community no more. But that's another subject. Y'all go ahead.
And it's funny y'all mentioned giving, because I want to tie in something that Dr. Walton and I talked about, I think about 3 months ago. When COVID popped up, one of the things that had to happen for football to occur, right, was the players had to get tested every practice, every game, just about every 5 minutes you're testing these folks, right? That costs money. And so I won't steal the thunder, Dr. Walton, but kind of let's rehash that conversation, what you told me, and that when it came to HBCUs, the funding just isn't there. And so that's why it's so important that alums contribute back. But I'll turn over to Dr. Walton for that.
Okay, at a couple of levels. First, I want to say one of the things that challenges us, and I agree with everything that everyone has said about giving, but one of the things that we have to do at HBCUs is give in spite of who the president or the leadership is. Sometimes our giving is conditioned upon who you like, who you don't like, who you want out of there, who offended you. When you called the place, and Mr. Tomlin said, when you graduate from an institution, you are the institution is you. It's always funny to me when somebody, talks about an institution, and I say, where did you go? Okay, but do you know that while you're having this conversation going in on your school, that when somebody sees that school on your resume or on your vita, they associate you with that negativity that you just got through spouting. Right. So we can't, we can't do that. And quite frankly, there's power in giving. That emotion doesn't get you anything when you're dealing with people outside of the Black community. They could care less about your feelings. They could care less about, your love or anything like that. You got to show your love in a material kind of way. And so, I've seen too many situations where I'm not giving anymore until that person is gone. That person is out. That person made me mad, so I'll never give back. I got mad with Dr. So-and-so in the XY department 20 years ago, and I'm still mad. So I won't give. Now, to be clear, that's not just HBCUs. When I was in graduate school, I worked at I did a summer working in the phonathon at a large state university, where I attended graduate school, and I heard some of the same stories. So it's not just them. It's not just us, but it hurts us more because we have less of the other going on. We've got to get to a place in our minds where we say, okay, like if this does not exist at my institution, then I'm going to put together a group of people and we're going to establish a scholarship fund. We're going to establish a fund. One of the things that I challenge, folk, when I get in front of HBCU alums and say, we need scholarships, but we also need grants and aid. Those young people who have the 2.5 to 2.9, who are going to be committed to your institution, they might not have done as well in high school, but some of those people come into institutions with a 2.6 and leave college with a 4.0, 3.8, 3.9 because they got their lives together. We need some grants to give those people. We can't call them scholarships because, they weren't scholars yet. They're developing scholars. But they're hardworking young people who deserve,
especially the private institutions,
and who deserve some kind of help. And so I think that we have to begin to think about it broadly. But the other piece of it is to get corporate money, they look at your alumni levels of giving.
That's right.
We can be critical of that and say that's just another way that the majority that the people who are less melanated are trying to bring us down. But that they do, those comparisons are out there, and that's out there. Levels of alumni giving. But the big thing that's always been a frustration to me is when people associate whether they're going to give or not with who that president is. That president is going to come and that president is going to go, but that institution is still going to be there and you're still going to be an alum. And that president that you didn't like, that you kept your money for 8 years or 10 years or 12 years will be gone on about their business to another institution.
That's right.
Or retirement, and your institution still sitting there that lost your thousands of dollars that you were actually able to give. The other thing, though, that happens with HBCUs is that you got to cultivate. We can't assume. We might say, I shouldn't have to cultivate you, but we do. It is what it is. People who have a lot of money, they want to know how and where and how. Something that Mr. Tomlin touched on earlier that I think that HBCUs also have to learn is that let people give where they want to give. Most times, because we need money overall, we want people to give to the general fund in the HBCU world, because we want you to give to the general fund. That way we can use it for scholarships if we need to. We can use it for general operating if we want to. We can use it over here if we want to. That's not a bad thing. That's noble. That's still helping the institution. But if you have never given, and if you don't give, and if I want to give some money to the SGA because that was important to me, then let me give my money to SGA. Because if I give my money to SGA, and when I come back and the Student Government Association is thriving, then I'm going to feel good. And then in 2 years later, I might give it to Student Affairs Division. And then, you give it to the division for a couple of years, and then another couple of years, I say, I might give it more broadly now. So people have to establish trust in giving. And I just think, I went to graduate school at Purdue University, and I'll say that, and I give to specific spaces at Purdue. I give to the Black Cultural Center. I give to the Department of Political Science, which is where my degree is from. And I've given to African American Studies program. I've given to the Black Graduate Student Association. I've given, to the Black Male program there. So, I've given to those places that had a specific impact on my development there. And so I think HBCUs have got to sort of figure out an infrastructure to do that in a more effective way and to encourage that kind of giving. My thing is, if I'm asking people to give it to me where you want to give it. But too often they get turned off because then when it's given to the broader pot, they can't see it. If they give it to a smaller pot and they get that view, like Ms. Mobley, who just commented, establishing trust is important. It absolutely is. If you give it to somewhere and you can come back at homecoming or graduation and see that's what I helped do, then you start trusting, and then you're going to give more broad. You're going to give more often, and you're going to give more. So I think that in some ways we have to sort of restructure the narrative around how we give and why we give.
I agree. All right, so we're gonna we'll do one more because we got a little bit of time. I kind of got off topic there. So as we talk about voting rights and how that's eroding, and I'm sure we all saw the Supreme Court decision from Arizona, about Arizona rather. What role do you all see HBCUs playing in voting rights, voting equity, community development, economic development? What role do they play in these communities?
Well, oh, I'm sorry. Someone else was speaking. Go ahead.
No,
I knew you were going to answer this one.
You knew I was going to answer this question. So, all right, where do I begin with this? First of all, it's a bunch of foolishness.
You got 5 minutes.
I'm not talking 5 minutes if I don't have to, but I see this as being actually an opportunity, dare I say, golden opportunity for HBCUs to get the exposure and recruitment opportunities out there by creating a community centered, community focused voter registration. Get ahead of the fray, especially a lot of us have midterm elections next year, and say, you know, my school supports the voting rights of all people, and like really make it a point to get out there and get voting information, voting keeping up with the Voting Rights Act. Get ahead of that now. It's a three-pronged approach, in my opinion. It's not just having people on the ground, it's having people all on social media, and it's having people lobby with your local governments, with putting together campaigns, if you will, that's going to help people be informed on what their options are to vote. All we can do is let the people know. Clearly, if they're taking away our ability to actually physically pick them up and take them to the polls, we can at least say, okay, look, y'all, this is what's going to happen if we don't vote. This is what we're headed towards. I mean, we're essentially repeating ourselves. What's happening right now is what they did during the Reconstruction era, with stripping away the rights and privileges of free Black Americans. So we have to be willing to teach from that historical perspective and then say, listen, if we don't fix this, history is about to repeat itself in a nasty way. And we have to be willing to go out there and do the work. If people are not on board, we don't have time to argue with them. Time is very precious, and time is of the essence. So that's my 2 cents with that.
I agree, in the sense that we have to show them, especially our students, how they're impacted by it. How we have to get to a point, and I taught government in high school, and the one thing that I would tell my colleagues is that students didn't necessarily, there were a couple of courses they didn't take serious, and social studies was one of those areas where they didn't really take it as serious because they didn't see the direct impact. I think that same thing has to be done with your college students and with our HBCUs. We have to show not just our schools, but our associations, our alumni associations, as well as our students, how our institutions are going to be impacted if we don't take full advantage of opportunities that we have. I think we have to really show them, not just having talking points, but they need to see it in black and white. They need to see how they're directly impacted by their getting out and voting, how important their vote is. I think people are starting to kind of see, based on this past year, I think COVID-19 plus the presidential election, and even your elections within your states, and you'll see it again in the midterms. But you have students. Once students understand how this is relevant to them, I think that will decrease the likelihood. I won't say that all of them will, but it decrease the likelihood of them just really being nonchalant about the importance of voting. But I think our institutions, it's the cornerstone of our community, our historically Black colleges. I think we must take an active role and not wait for someone to give us permission to do it, but we need to take an active role and active stance And if our schools can't do it, our associations and our students need to be able to do it.
We need to speak in the language of the people that we're trying to reach. That's where the disconnect
Yes.
is. We
Yes.
have this generational gap situation, like someone mentioned. Bougie alumni trying to get with the the Megan Thee Stallion generation, and I mean we have to be able to show them. We have to be able to show them and meet them where they are and say, listen, here's how this impacts you now, and here's how what you do now will impact you in the future, and here's how it affects your bottom dollar. People understand money and time. They understand that. That is cross generational. So we have to kind of ditch the technical jargon and just speak on a level that they understand and that they get. And one thing I can see about what these PWIs do very, very well is that they actually hire people who look like us to speak to people who look like us. So if they didn't understand the culture, they found somebody who understood it and paid them to go do it. We got to take from that playbook and go do the same thing and be willing to do the same thing. So, our church mothers might have an issue with someone like Shakari Robertson, who was running track right now, but guess who don't have a problem with him? People of voting age who are her age. People of voting age who like to have the lashes and the colorful weave and the long and the nails. We have to stop. We have to stop assuming that they will not go and vote. We have to stop assuming that they are a lost cause. When we give up hope in speaking to them, we give up hope on the future of our HBCUs.
I like it. I like it. All right. So we're going to close out with your final comments. We'll give everybody about a minute or so. Final comments. We'll start with you, Mr. Hall, Mayor Hall.
Well, I just appreciate you all coming on and being a part of this discussion. We'll probably have part two knowing the good brother Robert. So,
you and Jay Jones started that mess.
Jamal Torre, Professor Torre was supposed to join us, but he was on a tour, I believe. So we'll get him on the next, on part two of it. But we have to do something to shore up these HBCUs until it is on an equitable level for them to receive funding. So, and community involvement, I've been talking it for a couple of years now. We can't wait on the cavalry. We can't wait on the warriors to help us. We got to be the cavalry and the warriors until we can get in a position to help ourselves. So, I know what we're saying is relevant and what we need to do, but we got to help ourselves first, and then we can demand help from somewhere else while we're helping ourselves. That's it.
Mr. Tumblin, Coach Tumblin.
Yeah, well, first I want to thank you guys for the opportunity. I think that this is an excellent platform, and I think it's definitely needed. And I think I'm always, I guess, the teacher and the coach in me is always the what's next moment. And to me, the important thing is where do we go from here? It's hopefully these conversations will spark something in someone, and we can figure out the next steps. Having a conversation is the first part. Having a discussion is the other, and being able to engage in conversations about things that are extremely relevant and important to our community and to our institutions are long overdue. But I'm just a big results type individual. I like to see where things go from here. But we can talk, but it's important for us to set deadlines and set dates and act on it. And so that has to be something that we got to figure out what are our takeaways. Let's talk about it. Let's figure out some solutions, and let's move forward and let's go. So that's mine. Once again, I'd like to thank you guys for the opportunity.
Thank you for joining us. All right, Ms. Gregory.
Well, once again, thank you for having me. This was an excellent conversation. I am a huge proponent of solution-oriented conversation. So I know that this was an opportunity for us to come and kind of air our collective grievances and point out some really big disparities, big issues, glaring problems that we need to address. So if there's a part two, I think we need to come in with, be ready to go ahead and start working on the solutions that we can take back to our respective institutions. If not, come up with a collective solution where we can all work together and make it happen. But I think, if it's all about action, then action also includes coming up with possible solutions and executing said solutions. So with that, thank you guys for your time.
Thank you. Dr. Walton.
Yes. First, I want to thank you, Mr. Bryan and Ms. Hall, for the opportunity to be a part of this platform. To be sure, the HBCU and that experience is extremely important to me. And just to say a little bit about that last conversation, that was going about involvement. I think that our schools have been the pillars, the foundation for involvement in activism. I'm currently at Southern University in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and here in the Baton Rouge community, it is obvious that Southern has been a training ground for activism and those people who are making a difference in the Baton Rouge community. When you look at the Baton Rouge State Legislature, large number of Southern graduates are there, either from the Law Center or the undergraduate campus or both. Young man who graduated just 2 years ago just became the chairman of the board for a nonprofit in the community that he was actually a part of as a student that services students in the area. So those are the kinds of things that when we talk about the history of our institutions that we have to continue to make sure that happens. And it starts day one. I think, Mr. Tomlin said with the giving, but the giving, the activism, the pride, all of those things begin with day one. And if you do those, then you're going to graduate and you're going to know that I'm supposed to be doing voter registration drives. I'm supposed to be doing community things. And that's just not going to be, that's going to be something that you're going to do because it's going to be second nature. So again, thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. Thank you for this platform. I think it's outstanding that we take as many opportunities as possible to speak about our institutions and all of the great things that they have done and that they will continue to do, and the great leaders that they will produce and have always produced. And thank you very much.
Soteria.
Yes, sir. Yes,
yeah,
sir.
my wife is a FAMU rattler, but she's scared as the dickens of a snake. I don't know how she even went there.
Oh, bless her. It's all right.
I think she's an 83 grade of Florida A&M.
Well,
And brother, yeah, I had to get me a rattler. Brother Walton, do you know Cynthia Reed?
Cynthia Reed at Southern?
Yeah, she's a professor there, law professor.
Okay, I haven't met her yet. I've been here like 11 months, but I will try to find out who that is. I'll look her up. I do know a couple people in the law center, but
that's my good
not
sister.
met her. Okay,
that's my good sister.
Okay. I will go and make sure that I meet her.
Yeah, she'll be here next Saturday for our homecoming 40th anniversary for high school.
Okay.
Is it Tompkins?
Huh?
Is that Tompkins?
Ain't but one school in Savannah. That's Tompkins.
Oh man, go. I'll close with this. One of the things that we did not talk about, but I think kind of was a thread throughout the conversation, is that just like human beings, HBCUs install values in their graduates. And I see that more and more often every day when we see these graduates come out and they have a path and it's structured with those values in mind. They may not always stick to those values every day. Life happens. But that's the one thing I can always say. A lot of people don't know this, but I did my one semester at Howard University. And, there's just a different expectation. I did corporate fundraising before Morehouse College. And there's an expectation there. When you're a senior in the business school, you will wear a suit every day. And that's just a different type of way that they develop students. And so values, development, success, those are all huge components of why HBCUs are still relevant today. And so thank you all to our panelists. We are so thankful that you joined us. We'll have you back for part two if we do a part two. And thank you again for joining us today.
Thank you.
All right, y'all have a great weekend.
All right.
All right.
We'll be back next Saturday, same time. Is that right, Mr. Hall, Mayor Hall?
Same time next Saturday.
All right now.
All right.